Today's repotting video will include the use of this tiny little rusty hammer as well as a pickle jar, and I know that sounds weird, but it's because my Monstera deliciosa that I've been growing in just straight water for the last number of months has done so well that it's outgrown that container and I can't get it out. So let's start smashing up some stuff and get it into something a little bit larger. So here's what the plant looks like right now, and I think in the original video it had 3 leaves. It has 5 now, and you can see that the latest one here has more fenestrations, as well as it has sized up quite dramatically as well. Here are the roots. Look at these roots. This is absolutely crazy. I had no idea that it was gonna develop this many roots. Like, it is solid in there. It's packed. I cannot even move this plant. It is so secure in here. And I think the game changer for this setup was this little air pump. In the original video, I did add the air pump, and when I did, it started aerating the water, and it started to really smell. So yeah, that was not good. So I've been running this for 24 hours a day. It does have 2 settings, and it has like a little air stone. So it has this little stone you just drop in the water container, and it can run continuously, or you can put it in a mode where I think it runs for like 10 seconds and then it shuts off for 10 seconds. So this is a good way to conserve power as well. These are little rechargeable battery units. So yeah, that has been the game changer, and the roots have basically exploded and I've been getting new growth. Now for preparation, I'm just looking at the size difference between the 2 containers. So obviously this one is much larger, but the opening for the containers is pretty well the same size. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to just kind of squeeze the roots once I get it out of this container, squeeze the roots, and then just like stuff it in the pickle jar. So yeah, I've never had to smash a pot or a container in order to get a plant out. I've come close with this large jade plant back there. It did have kind of a misshapen pot before I put it in the terracotta one, so it was a little bit difficult to pull the entire plant out. So yeah, I was able to save that pot and I didn't have to smash it, but this will be the first time I've had to smash a container to get a plant out, and I can't get over the roots. Now I am going to say that the reason why there is lots of algae on this side and these roots are all white is because this is how the plant obviously faces the light. So the light source is going to be facing the front of the plant. Algae growth happens with obviously a light source. So the back of the plant, which receives no light, obviously has these white roots. So that is why it looks like that. So I'm not too worried about the algae. As long as you clean the water or replace the water every once in a while. After a couple days, you'll notice that the water level has dropped quite significantly. So I do have to top this one up quite a bit, which is probably the most surprising thing about this is how much water it actually uses. And I do use a fertilizer and water mixture, which I'll go over once I place the plant in the new container. Here's my little smashing tray, and I'm gonna get a container to drain the water. But I should mention that if you don't want algae, but you want your plant in a clear container, just add paper or something around it just to cover up those roots so that there is no light getting to the water for the algae development. So if you don't want it green, just cover up the container, and that way you can take it off and still look at the roots. But yeah, just cover it up and you won't get that algae growth. Okay, so I'm just going to support the plant. Not that it needs it, it's very secure in this container. I'm just going to dump all the water out, like so. I'm probably gonna rinse these roots off here as well. And I may add a cover around. I should have left the pickle label on the container so it doesn't get this algae anymore. So all the water's out. I'm going to dump this down the drain, and then I'm going to smash this pot. So it's definitely not the nicest looking water. It looks like green pea soup. But just looking at the Tupperware container and the amount of water, like that is not much water for that entire jar. So I'm assuming that the roots consume the majority of the jar, and it just allows for a small amount of water. That's actually pretty crazy. So because this is a professional plant show, I have to advocate for safety. So I am going to be using safety goggles, and then I'm going to be using this tiny little rusty hammer that I found in the shed. So now I'm not going to be like just winding up and smashing this. I'm just going to lightly tap the center of the glass here, and hopefully that creates a crack. Okay, so here goes nothing. Okay, that was easy. It just literally split right open. Best case scenario. Okay, so now without touching it, and I'm just going to use it like that, and let's see if it falls right out. So there is a little bit of glass right here, so I'm just going to use my pencil just to knock away the little glass shavings there. So now I'm going to take this over to the shower, spray off the roots, spray off the plant, and then let's see if it fits in its new pot. That actually went surprisingly well. I didn't think it was just going to take one tap and the entire thing would split open, but this has been rinsed off in the shower now, and I just want to show right here, you still can get some root rot when you are growing it in just straight water. So there's a few mushy roots right there. I'm not going to do anything about it just because it's all kind of entangled. When you change the water and when you rinse the water, it should just eventually just fall off, and then you can just kind of rinse it out. So the rest of the roots, I don't want to disturb too much just because it is so healthy and it's growing very, very well. That's the nice thing about growing plants in water or with hydroponics. When you have that consistent air source, you shouldn't get any root rot. Now, if you have a plant in just straight soil, there's a chance that you can get rot from either under or over watering, and you might be asking yourself, well, how can you overwater this plant if it's just in straight water? When you have a plant in just straight soil, if it's not the right soil mixture, if it's not a well-draining soil, and when you give it water and it stays in that wet soil for too long, it creates a limited oxygen environment, and it basically creates anaerobic bacteria which eat away at the roots. So that's why it's important to use like an oxygen source, like an air pump for hydroponics, or if you change out the water quite frequently, that helps with just replenishing the oxygen. But that's the difference between growing plants in water and soil, is it's a little bit easier to get root rot in a soil plant, just because it is much easier if you don't have it in the right soil to create that limited oxygen availability to the roots, and then it produces that anaerobic bacteria which can eat away at the roots and cause root rot. Okay, now let's jam this in the container, and just so you can see, it's actually quite satisfying. These roots are quite spongy. Now I don't want to squeeze them to the point where they start breaking, but I just want to get them in this container. So I'm going to, oh, this might be tough. Hopefully I don't break any of these larger roots. I'm definitely going to be breaking some roots for sure. Maybe some of these smaller ends, but actually that's there. Okay, so maybe just a few smaller tips. You can see just a couple like at the bottom of the container here. That went way better than I was expecting. The nice thing about these aerial roots is I'm not going to tuck them in the container because these are strictly for support and these are for growing. These are obviously the water roots. And you can see it's not quite reaching the bottom. That'll leave room for these roots to hopefully unravel and spread out in the container. So, and then you can see the aerial root is providing support on the top of the container, and then same with this one. So I'm not going to be putting these into the water. I'm thinking at some point I'm going to add a support stake to the exterior or the outside of the pot, and that way I can provide some vertical support as this plant continues to grow. I don't need to do it right now, but maybe in a few months, once it starts to get a few more leaves, I'll have to add a support at the back here so that the plant can continue to grow up vertically, as I don't want it to start flopping over or anything like that. But we're not quite there yet, so I may have to find a little piece of plank or something that I can maybe Velcro or tape around the container here. And yeah, now all I have to do is add some water and this project is complete. This is the fertilizer that I use for all of my houseplants, including the ones in water. I pre-mix it in this crusty looking 4-liter jug. I will use the fertilizer and water mixture with almost every watering, just because when you have a lot of houseplants like I do, it's tough to keep track of which plants are getting fertilizer and which ones aren't. So I just use a very small diluted amount with each watering, and they seem to like it. Lately, I've been adding this Root Farm pH down solution just because houseplants need a pH of around 5.5 to about 6.5 in order to uptake nutrients through the roots. Otherwise, it just makes them unavailable if it's too acidic or too alkaline. So all I use is just a little syringe from a Tylenol bottle, like a children's Tylenol, and then I just follow the directions on the back. It says to use 2 to 3 teaspoons per gallon. So when you convert that to milliliters, this is a 4-liter jug, so 2 to 3 teaspoons is actually 10 to 14 mils, I think. So that's actually quite a bit of fertilizer. What I typically use with the Root Farm is 2 mils per 4-liter jug and 2 mils of the Root Farm pH down to put it in that optimal range. So that's all I do is just open up the container. I feel like a little mad scientist. Pull up 2 mils like that. And then I just dump it in the water. So I can pull it up, flush out the syringe as well, like that. And then I add 2 mils of the Root Farm pH down. And that's all I've been using for my fertilizer water solution. So something like that. And that is pretty well good to go. I'm just going to mix it up a little bit, put the lid on and mix it up. Now all I'm going to do is just add the fertilizer water mixture and top it up. Then I'll put the air pump back in. There, completed. This is honestly so satisfying. Look at those roots, look at those bubbles. Now before I put it back on the floor, I just wanted to show this right here. I don't know if it'll show up on camera or not. But you can see this little streak right here. This is consistent with a sap-sucking bug like a thrip. Now I did find one little thrip a while ago on this plant. It looks to be okay. You can see there's another couple little areas of damage. But if you see like kind of silver streaking or little kind of brown blotchy areas on the front, and more specifically on the back side of the leaves, you'll see maybe little black dots, some of that streaking patterns, then you definitely have a thrip issue, or at least a sap-sucking bug. Spider mites, they will also cause yellowing kind of areas. So I frequently spray off my plants so that if there's any bugs that are on there, they can basically just blast them off. But I just wanted to show, this is what a little thrip, this guy just went cruising along this leaf here and just started eating or sucking the sap out of the leaves there. So yeah, I've been keeping an eye on these plants really close because I know I do have some spider mite issues. Nothing terrible, nothing that I'm concerned about, but I'm just being consistent with spraying off the leaves with just water. I have a little garden hose downstairs here in my basement. So I take a lot of my plants over to the shower there and I spray them off. So that's just, yeah, something to look for when you're caring for Monsteras. They are thrip magnets, and you'll see they look like a little piece of rice. If you find a very small speck of either white or black, it looks like a grain of rice, then that is a thrip and you should treat it immediately. So this is where the plant lives. It lives underneath a larger Monstera. I'm gonna have to look this one over as well, maybe spray it down, because if this one had a thrip on it, then guaranteed this one had a thrip at some point as well. I'm not seeing any damage on it, and I did wipe off the leaves last week. So yeah, this is the setup. It's just right on the floor. I have my little air pump here. I have a power cord underneath my IKEA cabinet, which is looking pretty fantastic. So I do plug this in, and then I have actually a couple of these little pumps. So yeah, this is where the plant is, and look at these aerial roots from the larger plant. They're just growing everywhere. So yeah, this went actually fairly well, and I do have one other Monstera growing in a water leca solution here as well, so I'm going to show you that, and then that's pretty much it for this video. So here's the one that's living in leca. This leaf not looking the greatest. This is the newest leaf since placing it in water, and it is already getting another leaf right here. I do share the container with my large pothos. This is a pothos leaf. That's not a Monstera. This is a cutting that I took off of one of my planks last week, and I'm just rooting it in this water leca mixture. But you can see these roots, super chunky. Let's see if I can lift this up. It's actually quite heavy. All the roots on the bottom, I can only do this with one hand. Look at the roots on the back here. Crazy. So it's doing well in this leca mixture, water leca mixture. It actually struggled a little bit, so I did have this one rooting in water. For whatever reason, when I added it to the leca, all the roots basically rotted off of this, the main stem, and it started getting new roots from the higher up growth points or nodes. I should mention the difference between the two water grown Monsteras is I do not keep an air pump in this one going continuously. Maybe once a week I'll put the pump in for a few hours. I'm just trying two different growing conditions. I haven't replaced the water in this one. I've just been topping it up as needed and then just providing that minimal air pump usage, I guess. But it's doing okay. The leaf itself maybe looks a little bit more yellow, so I don't know if that's due to maybe a lack of nutrients or even oxygen or even light source. It could be bleaching it out there a bit, but otherwise I'm just kind of using this one as an experiment plant for now. I hope you enjoyed the day of destruction with the rusty little hammer. If you have any comments or questions, please leave it down below in the comment section. Otherwise, thanks for watching on my videos. I really do appreciate the support. Take care, everyone. Bye.